This person, from what I've just watched from that intro, like the minute intro, it was all about protecting children and stopping children from transitioning and keeping them safe, which I do agree we should always keep children safe, obviously. But that's not his story. Like, hi guys, and welcome back to the channel. If you are new here, hello. My name is Alexis Blake. I'm a trans woman and I share my life stories and opinions on social media. And today we're going to be talking about detransitioning. Not me, I'm not detransitioning. I'm very, very happy with my transition and who I am now. But there is a percentage of trans people that do end up detransitioning. Why is it? What led them to transition in the first place? There's so much into it. I think it's such an interesting conversation. And I think it's really important to look at as well. I did read a statistic online that I think it was less than 1% of trans people detransition after. So if you didn't know, detransition just means someone who's transitioned genders and then they have gone back for whatever reason. Maybe the family pressure, society, maybe it's not something that they want anymore. There could be so many reasons to go into it. But I do want to react to a video today. It caught my eye and I'm sure I have seen this person before. The video is called I Became Transgender, Here's Why I Regret It, Reversing the Transition. I can't even imagine, how do you reverse transition when you've medically transitioned with hormones? So much has changed. If you've had surgeries, irreversible surgeries, I think there's so much. I think it's going to be really interesting. And I just want to listen to someone's perspective of why they thought they were trans to transition and then why they then detransition. So let's dive right in. The top I'm wearing today, does it look like it's been sliced up by accident or does it look purposeful? This is how it came and I'm a little bit on the fence about it. I'm not sure, but I'm pretty impressed that I got my lipstick kind of the same shade. The cat's somewhere in the house. He didn't want to join. He wasn't feeling the vibe today being on camera. Anyway, let's dive right in. Let's go.
I lived 8 years as Laura Jensen until I woke up and realized that it was totally insane to live this out. The first time that it happened in the 50s was Christine Jorgensen, but Jenner took it to the next level. And then 2015, it began to explode.
Are you a woman?
Yes, for all intents and purposes, I am a woman. My brain is much more female than it is male.
Ladies and gentlemen, the courageous, the stunning Caitlyn Jenner.
We're ruining an entire generation of children. I find even hearing about it and reading about it so repugnant and so destructive to children.
Trans members of this family all love each other so proudly, and they all...
Bringing drag performers together with little kids is kind of a perfect relationship.
There are people whose gender might be a little bit of both or might even be neither.
And it's time that this stuff needs to end. We need men and women to step up and say, stop this nonsense.
This is taking a very different turn to what I expected. Like, I thought we were just going to be watching a story of how someone wrongly thought they were trans. Maybe they thought they were gay and then they transitioned and then it was a mistake. But I didn't realize this person would detransition and then become anti-trans. There's a lot to unpack in what I just watched about the children aspect of it. Like, why... So here's my question. This person, from what I've just watched from that intro, like the minute intro, it was all about protecting children and stopping children from transitioning and keeping them safe, which I do agree we should always keep children safe, obviously. But that's not his story. Like, why is our sole focus on this transgender issue in this video being directed towards children? I know there is more of an issue in America than there is, I think, in the UK around young people and children transitioning at a too early age. But I completely was blindsided by what was just said. I thought the video was going to be so different to that. But let's watch a bit more and see what is said.
I was born and raised in Los Angeles, California. You know, my upbringing was pretty much a typical California upbringing in Los Angeles in the early 40s. It wasn't really anything remarkable, at least not until my dad began to take me over and drop me off at my grandma's house. Grandma was a seamstress and made dresses, and I became very curious about her work, and my curiosity led to her making me a purple chiffon dress that she made just to fit my perfect little 4-year-old body. You know, at first it felt really exciting to have somebody telling me how wonderful and cute I was. But what I didn't realize was happening is the second Grandma began to tell me how cute I looked in that purple dress, what she was really saying was that there was something radically wrong with the little boy that I really was.
Okay. Of course, I don't know his grandma and I don't know him, but I think saying that someone looks nice in a dress that doesn't have any deeper meaning than that, or I mean, his grandma said, "You look nice in that dress," and now he's taking that to mean you're not a boy. That is a huge leap to jump between. And just because she was saying he looked nice in the dress doesn't mean she was saying you should transition, you should be a girl, you're not a boy. It's much simpler than that. And that's pulling meaning out of nothing that wasn't there, in my opinion.
So that begins this sort of creepy kind of psychological and emotional destruction that starts with inside a young boy, 4 years old, who doesn't know what the consequences are going to be about putting on a dress at 4 years old and keeping it a secret from my parents.
No, I'm sorry, no. There's always going to be like a middle ground, isn't there, about how much children should know at a young age, what should they know, what shouldn't they know, and I'm completely down to the parents. It's their decision because they're the parents at the end of the day. But the consequences of wearing a dress is not that your child is going to transition from boy to girl. That is not, absolutely not the case. Like, there is so many little boys. Like, I remember being a really little kid, maybe around 5 or 6, and I was with some boys. I think we were like playing in one of the houses and we were playing with the dolls and their sisters' clothes and makeup. And I grew up to be transgender, fair enough, but all those other boys didn't grow up to be trans. They didn't even grow up to be gay. They just grew up to be straight, everyday men. And that didn't define who they were. They were just exploring a side of their femininity that they have within them, because all boys have femininity within them and masculinity, and the same for girls. So it's a bit of a leap again. But anyway.
Are going to be about putting on a dress at 4 years old and keeping it a secret from my parents for nearly 2 years, until I became so accustomed to wearing that purple dress that I decided to take the dress home so that I could put it on when my parents weren't watching or when I was alone, and I could sort of listen and hear those affirmations. I became sort of addicted to the affirmations and hearing her say how cute I was. So I had the purple dress at home, but my mom found it in my bottom dresser drawer. And she said, "Well, where did you get this dress?" And I said, "Well, Grandma made it." And that just blew the house up. My dad was upset. My mom was upset. It was supposed to be a secret. I broke the secret. And as a result of that, I could not go back to Grandma's house without my mom or dad being with me. Dad didn't know what to do. His mother-in-law had just been cross-dressing his young boy. He was so angry at my grandmother that he took his anger out in his discipline on me, and he started hitting me with a hardwood floor plank when I would do something wrong. Sometimes he was just being way too critical, but it was that what was built up in him because of what happened to me. He did not know what to do. If you can imagine, in 1946, 47, there's no information about kids wearing dresses. But the next part of the equation was his adopted brother, Uncle Fred, heard about me wearing the purple dress, and Uncle Fred decided that I was fair game to be sexually abused. Uncle Fred was not playing with a full deck of cards, and he'd get drinking a little bit, and he would come looking for me, and he would molest me. The emotional and psychological issues that I had from Grandma affirming me, I didn't really realize the consequences of those for many years. The hardwood floor plank obviously was very devastating. And then the sexual abuse was sort of the cherry on top of the cake. I was a broken child before I was 10 years old. You know, I decided that maybe I should have been a girl, not realizing that what I was trying to do was escape the abuse, not actually change who I was. But
Okay, I understand a little bit more now. This is the sort of thing that I thought we were going to learn about, understand and get some knowledge of why this person detransitioned eventually later in life. So they're saying that they transitioned due to trauma, trying to escape the past self and all the negative bad experiences. So he's saying he transitioned to escape the trauma and the negative, bad, awful life that he had. And it sounds awful. That was heartbreaking to hear. And they transitioned to escape that. And maybe that is the reason why some people transition and then ineffectively detransition later down the line. But I think there is such a high push on social media at the moment and in the news and politicians that it's all about detransitioners, and we should all be worried because everyone's going to detransition. It's not going to stick. And the fact is that there are cases, there are people that detransition, and there are people that are maybe forced into transition or transition for the wrong reasons, and maybe it is a bit too easy in some places to transition. But those people that detransition is like less than 1% of trans people. And this is making out like it's such, I don't know, it's a lot. I didn't realize how like intense this video was going to be. I don't know why. I thought it'd be something different, but it's quite hard to hear the reasons why he thought he was a girl and transition. Let's watch a bit more. Oh.
Apollo space missions as an associate design engineer, but that purple dress, the hardwood floor plank, and the sexual abuse was about to take everything away. Then the next critical step was struggling with my identity. I went to a gender specialist in San Francisco who promptly identified me with gender dysphoria or gender identity disorder and promptly told me that I needed hormones and surgery. That was the treatment that he was prescribing to help me end the cycle of distress I was having about my gender because of what happened to me as a young child. The doctor I went to, his name is Dr. Paul Walker. Dr. Paul Walker was a homosexual transgender activist. He felt his job was to do like they're doing today, is to introduce people to hormones and surgery as a process of treatment. Now, keep in mind, Dr. Paul Walker was not just your average therapist. Dr. Paul Walker was the author, the primary chairperson and author of the Harry Benjamin International Standards of Care. The very same.
It's a little bit different in the UK to America. As far as I'm aware, and what I experienced in my transition and how I started my medical transition with hormones and whatnot. First of all, the basics of it is it's a 4-year wait just to get seen by a gender specialist in the UK if you're going through the NHS, our National Health Service. If you go the private route, you're still waiting 6 months to a year. And even then, like when I had my initial appointment, I had to prove so much that this is what I truly, truly wanted. I had to live my life as Alexis before they would even consider giving me a diagnosis of gender dysphoria. I had to legally change my name to Alexis before they would consider giving me a diagnosis of gender dysphoria. I had to come out to everyone in my life before they would consider giving me a diagnosis. And rightly so, because it is such a huge thing to medically transition. You are changing so much about yourself with some irreversible things that happen to your body. So I'm glad that I had all those barriers in place in a way, because it really made me challenge if this is something that I truly, truly wanted. I believe from what I've seen online and what I've read and heard, I think in America it's easier to get hormone prescriptions. It's easier to transition, which it shouldn't be. You should have to go through psychological evaluations and therapy and really make sure it's what you want before you do it, because then that will eliminate as many detransitioning cases as possible. Don't forget as well, like when I was saying earlier, 1% of people who are trans detransition. Out of that 1%, not all of them are necessarily going to be like, oh, actually, I'm not trans. Some of them might detransition for pressure from family, pressure from parents, pressure from society. They might not think it is what it is, so they might try and transition, they might not pass. And there's so many reasons why people detransition. It's not always that they're just not trans, for instance. Anyway, we've got a little bit more. It's a lot, this. It's quite heavy to listen to. It's quite heartbreaking.
Pushing transgenderism, pushing surgery, and pushing hormones recklessly and really damaging someone's life like mine. I had kind of a devastating run of events. When I was struggling with alcoholism and drug addiction, I went into a treatment facility as Laura Jensen and came out the other side. And I went through a 2.5 or 3-hour therapy session with my psychologist. And during that day, I went through all of the things that had happened: the sexual abuse, the emotional abuse, the wrong idea about going through this procedure, all the things I'd done wrong, the destruction I did to my children and my ex-wife. And I wrote everything down after speaking about these issues, and he put a match to those yellow line paper. and in the parking lot, and those papers began to burn, and the wind gently picked up the flame, and the papers were burned up, and it was sort of that cathartic moment where you realize, okay, all of that stuff now is lifted off of my shoulders. And he said, let's go back into my office and let's pray. Well, I'll be honest with you, this guy prays a lot, and he prays for a long time, and I did not want to go back in and pray with this guy because I figured I'd be there for like an hour praying. And as he prayed, I kept hearing him, and I kept thinking, is he going to end? And then there was a point in time when I couldn't hear him praying anymore. And miraculously, what I saw at that moment that I couldn't hear his voice was I saw the Lord Jesus Christ actually descending toward me with his arms stretched out. And I looked in front of me, and I saw that he was reaching toward a little baby. And I looked at the baby, and I go, that baby is me. The Lord is coming to claim me. And he turned to me and said, your life will be safe with me forever. And the Lord disappeared. I realized at that very moment, the Lord came to redeem and restore my life so that I will serve him every day after that date. I wanted to restore my life, bring myself back to reality. So faith played the pivotal role in me being here today. 35 years sober, married 24 years, and I detransitioned over 30.
I do have a little bit of a problem with what he was just saying then. So he was saying he restored his life, that in some sense being trans was a shambles, and that he redeemed himself. And to me, if you're going to say you're redeeming yourself, that to me reads as that you see trans people as bad, going against his Lord. And that this is what frustrates me a little bit, because I've seen a few detransitioner cases before, and it comes back to religion in the end, and they have an epiphany, or they see God or speak to God, and then it turns into that being trans is wrong and it's awful and it's evil, and it creates such like a hysteria around being trans. So fair enough, that might be his experience and that's how he views it and sees it, but by him saying that on a public platform that has had 2.2 million views, this video, 2.2 million views, where he is saying that God came to him. And what I got from that, he's saying God came to him and said, you've done wrong by being trans, but I'll save you now, you'll be fine. That's what I'm getting. And it creates this like what is so wrong with being trans? Like, if you don't agree with it anymore and you don't like it and you think it's not right, then that's fair enough to have your opinion. I'm talking about the man in the video. But to spread that sort of message so loudly, it's so detrimental, and it can be so damaging, because yes, his story and how he transitioned was wrong, and it was for the wrong reasons, and he might have been pressured into it, and XYZ. There was all these factors that went into his transition that should never have been there, and I appreciate that. But for me, I didn't know it at the time, but now I can honestly say I was never ever truly happy before my transition, ever. I felt moments of happiness and I loved people and I enjoyed things, but until I was doing all of those things again, like being with my fiance Liam, or working, or seeing friends, or going out for dinner, just small things like that, until I was doing them as Alexis, I didn't fully enjoy them because I wasn't being my true self in those moments. And these videos are so damaging and so scary to me because it is so powerful to watch, and it draws you into his way of thinking and how he views trans people now, and it's just not the case for everyone. So it's a very sad story, and I'm glad to hear that he's doing really well. Now he's been married for a long time, he's been successful, he's had everything that he wanted, and he's in a much better place, and he's let the past go. I think that's amazing, but it does make me a bit sad how damaging that ethos is around transgender people. Anyway, I'm going to call it there. Oh, it's a bit sad, that one, guys. I'm very sorry. It kind of broke my heart a little bit in points. I was like they're like a roller coaster. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to me ramble about this and react to it. I hope you have a lovely day wherever you are. Please don't forget to subscribe. If you're new here, we post weekly videos and I have a weekly podcast with my fiance Liam as well. I will see you guys in the next one. Something a bit more upbeat next time, I promise. Okay, thank you so much. Bye. Bye. I just got blooming lipstick on my fingers. Bye.